Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our November webinar. My name is Greg Beaton, and I lead this DEFRA project for Brown&Co. And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes just running through some items of process, giving you an update of how the project's going so far. And then the last few slides, we're going to look at the structure of the new grant schemes that have just been launched. So just a few items of housekeeping before we start. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. So please do press that if you wish to answer a question. And we will endeavour to answer those as we go through. If we don't answer them, we'll get back to everybody afterwards via email. So please, I do encourage everybody to ask what they want during the session. We are recording this session, so if anybody can't make it, or you have friends, colleagues, family, acquaintances who want to see it afterwards, it will be available, and we'll let you know where you can watch it after the event. And lastly, I think as per our previous 4 webinars that we've run, we have a range of participants. Some people have already signed up with us, some people may have even started the process with us, and some people are attending the webinar to see what our offer is. And so there will be a little bit of repetition. I apologise for that, but we want to ensure that everybody has the same information. So thank you very much, and we'll now move on to the first slide, please. So what I want to do is run through just a bit of background of the project, talking a little bit about the transition period and why DEFRA are promoting this project, what our approach is with Brown&Co, an update on some of the schemes and funds that have just been launched, and then we finalise really with how to sign up with us and what the next steps will be. And then, of course, questions and answers throughout, but we'll have time at the end if anybody wants to ask anything in addition to what's been answered through the body of the discussion. So what's this fund all about? So as we know, we are leaving the European Union, and there is a 7-year transition period. And so DEFRA are funding ourselves and other organisations to provide support to farmers during that time, so that farmers are clear what the changes are going to be, and most importantly, understand what the impacts are going to be on their businesses. And all of this really to encourage understanding, to encourage change, to enable decisions to be made, and to ensure that farmers feel supported through this process. So there are 3 phases in the project. The pilot phase finished last year. We were the biggest provider in that pilot phase. The interim phase is this phase we're in now. It's quite a short phase, running from August until February 22. And the main phase starts next summer, all the way through until, I think it's probably going to be early 2025 now. So it's 3 years of that. Farmers can participate in all phases, so you're not limited to choosing which phase you want to participate in. Next slide, please. So the rationale for the project, well, as we know, the last 2 years there have been a lot of announcements and papers, policy announcements, pilot projects, consultations, a whole lot of them through from the beginning of last year, and they're still ongoing now. But we are now getting to the time now when we do have, I think, some detail coming out that enables some decision making. And if you look at the top right hand side of this slide, you will see that as part of the mix of announcements and schemes and offers in 2021, one thing that is starting is this Future Farm Resilience Fund, and that's what this project is. So that little red box up there represents part of the portfolio of offer from DEFRA. Next slide, please. So what's the driver? The impact driver, really, for most is loss of BPS. In our pilot phase, when we surveyed 500 odd farmers, nearly 52% did not think their businesses were viable without BPS. And certainly I know in the 30 odd farmers that I've worked with on this project in the last 3 or 4 weeks, that even those who are very profitable and doing very well, a significant part of profitability is made up of BPS. For those who are doing not so well, often all of profitability is the BPS. So whatever size, it's going to catalyse some change in every business, I believe. So at the bottom there, you can just see a little calculator, and that's what everybody will get as part of our report that really sets out how those reductions are going to affect businesses. And of course, they start next month, December. The cheque that farmers will receive will be slightly less than it was last year. Next slide, please. So timeline for change. All I wanted to do in this slide, and there's a lot of text on here, is just to highlight how many times that 2021 and 2022 appear. So lots of these new initiatives and changes happen now through this winter, next spring, next summer. And so now is a time for everybody to start understanding those and really start planning how businesses can adapt, change, incorporate the new opportunities, as well as adapting to the loss of BPS. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about Brown&Co, for those who don't know us. We have 8 offices across the country, and we are working through the whole of England, maybe not so much in the Northwest, but the rest of England in this project. We are a multi-disciplined organisation where we have teams of professionals in agricultural business consultancy, environment, land agency, commercial property, and we all work together providing different areas of expertise and support on farm. We work with about 2,500 farmers every year and have a footprint of about 350,000 hectares. Next slide, please. So what's our delivery model? Well, our model is very much based around one-to-one support. And we learned from our interactions with 700 or 800 farmers in the pilot phase, this was the methodology that most farmers felt gave them the best support and advice in understanding and planning change. So our model is very much built around that. And so that approach, so a session, a morning, an afternoon, a walk around the farm with a consultant, is what we're basing our model on. The other part of our model that we think is really important is that our advice is delivered by experienced consultants. So some of these discussions, we get into sort of succession planning, social change, as well as the economics and the finances of the business. And we believe that only experience from understanding and working in the sector for many years can really deliver the best on farm. And so our teams are experienced consultants working throughout the country. We also have the ability to bring in specialist skills from our land agents or our planning teams as required. Next slide, please. So just a couple of slides now on what the report looks like, just so everybody's aware of that. So after every meeting, a report will be produced. This would set out some of the financial analysis, but most importantly, the observations section, observations and recommendations, sets out a bit of a roadmap that farmers and families can talk about, can hopefully use to plan, to review, either to undertake or even to discount or not take forward. But at least there's something there that puts in place some form of structure to be looked at over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And that's something we're very happy to support farmers with, but we think that's important because often it pulls together the discussion in the meeting, and we try and deliver that within the report. We also, on our next slide, have what we're calling our resilience benchmark. And we believe there are 6 factors that are really important in building farm resilience going forward. And I think when we're talking about resilience, what we're talking about is the ability for businesses to change as the climate changes, as the economics change, and to try and reduce risk in business going forward. So one of them is around performance. The second is around the diversification of the business. In theory, the more diversified, the more resilient. The third is around social structures, so understanding whether there have been discussions and plans for social change, succession planning. These things take time. The fourth is around environmental uptake. And we know that the direction of travel around the shift from basic payments to support through public goods is something that is going to gain momentum as ELMS comes out. So understanding where farmers are with that. The last one, the second last one is really around sustained profitability, understanding whether the net worth of the business is building over time. And the other around value creation potential. So this is looking at, as an example, have opportunities been assessed for, looked at for building land or for solar or some of these other larger schemes that might not be, in our day-to-day thinking. So also in our, as part of our reporting, we also produce some case studies. These are some examples from our pilot phase. And these are anonymized, but these represent real examples of how farmers are planning change. So this one happened to be on carbon capture, and we've done others on succession planning and tenancy reform and the like. So let's just think about how this process works, and then we can get on to, after this slide, a little bit more detail on some of the new schemes. So the process would be that anybody can register their interest. We're advertising quite widely. You can ping us an email, you can register via our website, you can call in the office. And after that, we'll respond within 24 hours. We will then send you an information pack that sets out the offer. It gives a fact sheet on the changes ahead, and it starts the engagement with us. One of our project team will then give you a call and run through a couple of administrative points that we need to deliver for DEFRA. So there's a demographic survey and an entrance survey. These are very light touch. There's 7 or 8 questions in each one, and we do those over the phone, and they probably take 5 minutes. After that, based on the information we've gleaned from that conversation, you'll then get a call by a consultant who's been assigned to you. So that consultant will be assigned because of your geographic area or your farm type, and ideally will have those skills that can best support your business. So they'll give you a ring, they'll find out a bit more detail about your business, they'll plan a meeting time, and they may ask for further information. They may ask for your accounts to be shared so that they can really do as much homework as possible before the meeting. You'll then, in stage 5, spend half a day together on farm with your consultant. And that's really down to you as a farmer to really make the most of that time. So prepare in advance, think about the questions, think who you want to be in that meeting, think whether you want to sit around the kitchen table, whether you want to walk around the farm. It's very much down to farmers to make that work for them. After that meeting, we'll produce a report, send it through to you. We'll follow up with a call to see whether you're comfortable with the report, whether it reflects the meeting. And then really there's a period then over the next few months where you know, as farmers, you can digest the report, you can decide if or how you might be looking to make change. Towards the end of the project, which in this case is going to be January and February, you'll get another call from us to check progress, see if you need any support. And that's really based around the plan, the action plan in the report. And then we have to do another small exit survey, another 5-minute survey for DEFRA. So that's our process that we're following. We've got a core team who happen to be based, in this case here in St Neots office, who are managing that, but all of our offices through the whole country, and we've got about 35 consultants out there who are working on this project. So next, on this next slide, just a little bit here on how we're delivering, just to give you an idea. So some names and some faces there, or some faces rather, and just to show that we're delivering through the whole of the country. We've at this point probably approaching about 550 sign-ups to the project. So we've still got another couple of hundred to go. So please do sign up. Once we get full, then we will stop recruiting and we will focus on delivery. So still time to go. We will be delivering all the way through until the end of January, beginning of February. So please do take the time over the Christmas holidays if you need to get signed up with us. Next slide, please. So a little bit on feedback so far, and we just sought permission from some of the farmers we've worked with to just provide us a few quotes as to what they've found useful or not. They were open to comment as they needed. And as you can see here, pretty positive all the way around, really. So, generally, farmers are finding it very helpful to make sure they haven't missed anything, to understand what the impact and the opportunities are. Some farmers just feel really as though they can share their worries, their concerns. They can use the consultant as a bit of a sounding board. The bottom right one here, I think, was a good one, where the whole family was pulled together, so it enabled a whole family discussion. I think this sort of third-party view on a business is very much captured in the tweet in the middle from a farmer who had a very positive experience with us. So lots of positivity out there, and we hope that we replicate that with every farmer that we work with. Next slide. So one of the things that we thought was useful that we did last time was pull together some observations from our consultants, just general snippets about what we're seeing out there. There's a long list here, but I thought it's useful just to put it up to let people have a read. One or 2 points I would pull out of this is that generally information on farm is quite often outdated. Accounts are often 1 or 2 years out of date, which is often 2 or 3 harvests ago. So it takes some time to understand what the situation is today, and then we start looking forward rather than looking backwards. There's a big push to maximize environmental income. And I would say that one thing that I certainly like to do is to start off by saying, actually, let's think if we can get near 50% of that BPS check through environmental income streams as a baseline. We can do more than that, but let's have that as an initial target. We've got some farmers who actually are, not wanting to change, which is fine. But as long as we understand what the effect on that business might be, then it's down to every farmer's choice as to how they want to proceed. And then point 9 there really, I think, is one that we often come across, when we're talking about succession planning around older generations stepping out of the farm. Do they have enough funding to fund themselves in retirement? Have they got somewhere to live? And thinking about how a lump sum scheme might help. Although I would have to say, generally, I think the lump sum scheme is not going to provide too much in that department unless it changes. We know that it's still, the consultation is still being reviewed. Let's see what the result of the DEFRA analysis of the consultation is and see what they come out with. Okay, next slide. So just let me, before we go on to the farm investment fund, let me look at these questions. So the first question is really around proximity to Brown&Co offices. And this is one that we've been asked before. Can we still work with Brown&Co if we don't happen to be close to one of their offices? The answer is absolutely yes. We've got about 50 farmers already in Devon and Cornwall that we're working with, and we are organising that with team members going down there. But also we have an ambition to base people down there. We've got plenty of our team who are from Devon and Cornwall, as an example, and so a very good knowledge of local context. So please don't hold back if you don't think a Brown&Co office is close to you. We're working through the whole country. And then the first question is around how this project will help arable farmers. Well, I think this project will help all farmers. We're working across livestock farmers, arable or cereal farmers, root farmers. We're doing bits with poultry, with dairy, with outdoor laying hens, with mixed farms. So I think every farmer should be able to benefit from this project. And so I wouldn't actually say any particular group will benefit any more or less than others. And I think someone like arable farmers I think at the moment we've got very high commodity prices, cereal prices. And so I think that the challenge with arable farmers is to look beyond this year and next year and think about, if we return to a more uniform cereal pricing, that's what we need to focus on farm profitability in those times. And just one last one before we move on to looking at the investment fund. The questions come in on small farms. And yes, farms of all sizes we work with. But I think particularly smaller farms are the ones who, their BPS payments have been generally lower, but they do tend to form, in my experience, probably a higher proportion of any profitability that's there. So I think small farms are particularly ones who could benefit from this when looking at what the future might look like and how businesses, diversifications, other options could be planned. So in the last few slides, I want to just look at the grants that have been launched in this last week or a week and a half. And there's different tiers of grants. So overall in the farming investment fund, there's a broad split. There's the farming equipment and technology fund on the left-hand side of the screen here. This is the old sort of small grant scheme. So this opened on the 16th of November. It closes on the 7th of January. It will fund up to 25,000 as a grant, and that represents 40% of any purchase price. So that's a purchase price of whatever it is, £60,000 approximately, and 25,000 of that will be funded. The equipment list in there, so there's a list, and do have a look on a list online. DEFRA have published a line on the list on their portal. The number of items in that list has increased from 85 to 120. Includes now contractors, which you didn't do before. It's widened slightly to forestry and horticulture. And it's a list that is there. And I think the emphasis of what there's more in there other than just livestock. I think there was a lot of livestock equipment last time. There's still a lot of livestock equipment, but I think there's other equipment as well. So the other fund is the larger fund, which is the Farming Transformation Fund. And this one offers grants up to £500,000, so it's much bigger. And this fund is actually split into three parts. The first part is around water resource management. So this is around basically reservoirs, infrastructure associated with on-farm water storage. That fund has launched. And that's a two-stage process. And I believe that at some point in early January is when the first expressions of interest need to go in for that through the online checker. And then after that, there will be a more detailed application that I think, again, is around about June of next year that needs to be in by. So there are other two parts of that fund. One is the farm productivity part of it. This is going to launch next month, very soon. And this will include things like robotics, automation, and LED lighting, as well as other items we're not sure of yet. The detail of that will come out in the next month. And then the third part of the large fund is around adding value to farm produce. And this is going to be out in early or spring of 2022. And in here, it's going to be around, increasing the value of the core commodity. It might be a cereal, it might be potato, whatever it might be. It might be poultry. So things we're thinking about that might come in here would be around processing capacity, enhancing storage. It might be around food processing. And there is a chance, and it's still under discussion, that there might be construction of grain stores in there as well. We will wait and see. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more detail just on the Farming Equipment and Technology Fund. This is a one-page flyer that do let us know, and we can send this to you. So it just talks about the process, the timelines, and so it's important to get your application in by the 7th of January. You will hear within 3 to 4 weeks after that whether you've been successful. And then you have until September, so the end of September next year, to actually purchase the item and make the claim. The one thing I would say that's really important here, and we've found in previous rounds of this fund, that your item that you purchase needs to meet the specification. The RPA who administer the scheme generally don't have any flexibility to allow grant applications that are outside the specification. So please be clear on that, and please be clear that anybody you're purchasing it from is clear that their item meets that specification. So the next slide just highlights a few items that are in here. So there's livestock handling systems. There is a push as we move towards more sort of a regenerative agriculture approach across some of our land, and the ability to grow over winter cover crops and to drill without disturbing the soil surface too much. There's direct drills in there, 3 meters and 6 meters. It's cover crop rollers. Then there's our precision agricultural stuff, around assisted steering, GPS light bars. And then there's other items like slurry separators and the like that are there really to help reduce emissions. Next slide, please. And just a slide on the large fund. So this is on the water management one. A lot of detail there that I won't read through now, but just to reiterate, the checker, which is the initial first stage of the process, has got to be in by the 12th of January and the full application by the end of June next year. We think this fund, for the first fund, there's about 17 million. For this fund, there's about 10 million. And that's not going to construct many reservoirs. So this is probably going to be quite competitive. I think for this one, ideally you need to be down the road with abstraction licensing and also planning permission. You don't have to have them in place, but you do have to have them in progress to make the application. With these two funds and the second two phases of this one, I will say as well that they're all going to come again next autumn. So autumn, winter 2022, we expect this scheme to be relaunched. There may be some amendments to that, and particularly on the small grant scheme, DEFRA are asking to submit, or we can submit, if there are any obvious gaps for equipment that should be on there, then do let us know, and we can make suggestions as to whether they are included in the next round. So just a couple of questions that came up on our, we had a call with DEFRA the other day. So the first one is around the amount of money going into the fund. I'll just talk through that. The second one is often asked, if I buy something, can I go and stick it in the local machinery auction afterwards? The answer is no. You need to keep it for 5 years after it's had grant funding associated with it. On infrastructure, this is the grain store or other sort of construction question. We're unsure yet. We will learn quite soon whether infrastructure funding is going to be included. The rationale for this would be that it allows added value to on-farm produce. And again, I hear from farmers quite often that the prices don't represent what you actually have to pay to buy things out there. So we understand that the prices have been aligned. Early this year, there was an independent assessment to do that. So they are based on prices that you could buy items, certainly in the spring of 2021. I appreciate they may have gone up since then, but it certainly is a 2021 valuation. So there are 35 new items this time versus last time. Can't be used for second-hand pieces of kit, and certainly for the small fund, you should hear back in 3 to 4 weeks after application as to whether you've been successful. So I've got a couple of questions coming before we do that. I will just look at the next steps. So our process is, these are next steps. If you want to sign up with us, email us, call us, we're on our website. What we need to get from people on their SBI number, we'll get back to you in 24 hours, and the process will then start with us. If you've got any questions, do give us a ring. The team here will be really happy to help with you that. We are aiming to get out on farm pretty quickly. We're all pretty flat out now delivering these meetings all the way through until Christmas and then into January. So let's, I think that's the last slide we have. So I'll look at some Q&As now. So the first question that's come in here is around small farmers being discriminated against. The 2,000 minimum grant means I need to spend 5,000 to be eligible. And is the fund competitive? So I think the answer to that is the items are set. I think DEFRA said they have brought down the minimum spend this time to make it more accessible. When it comes to the competitive side of it, well, there's a set amount of money, 17 million for the fund. If it's oversubscribed, then I am assuming, and I don't know the answer to this, but that there will be some scaling back. How that happens, I don't know. And I don't know how it will be judged as to if any are rejected or not. My suggestion would be to get proposals and grants in as soon as possible, just in case it is on a first come, first served basis. The next question is around, will the farm equipment fund be extended to contractors? The answer is yes, it is. So contractors can now apply, and I think contractors would need to register with an SBI number, but that can be done on the RPA site relatively easily. But contractors, yes, can apply this time, which they couldn't do last time. I'm just looking through questions here. Can you apply for multiple items to add up to more than 25,000? Good question. I think the answer to that is yes. I think each item has a limit. I don't believe that there is a limit per individual. I will need to check that, but my understanding is that you can apply for multiple items, yeah. Another question, can Brown&Co provide help under the Farm Resilience Project? Yes, not quite sure what type of help, what specific help that might be, but absolutely yes. Sort of our, we go out, we do what we can within the scope of the project. We do have, in some cases, a little bit of scope to run a second meeting for those who really require it. But we do, we do want to be clear that the project provides us with a certain amount of time that DEFRA have funded. Beyond that, then anything would need to be agreed with us on our, normal way of working. Or the other option, obviously, is for farmers to make, would be to wait to the main part of the scheme as well. Another question, are there grants for diversification such as holiday cottages? The answer is unfortunately not this time. There were grants for tourism last time, and certainly tourism is an area where there's a lot of interest. I would say at least half of the farmers that I'm seeing at the moment have ideas around tourism. And there's a whole discussion there around, the opportunity in particular locations and understanding the context. But one thing is clear at the moment is there's no money to support that in this grant round from DEFRA. We have been told that there might be from other government departments in the future, but not for now, unfortunately. Sorry, so as a clarification on the question here around can Brown&Co help with the Farm Investment Fund under the Farm Resilience Project? Unfortunately not. Our remit is we don't go into the grant application process that's a separate activity. And I think you'd find that from all the providers. Sort of our remit with DEFRA is around providing a service around understanding what's there. It doesn't go into actually the delivery of some of the outcomes from that. Question here, is it best to run on the application for grants past Brown&Co and before putting the application in? My suggestion to that would be when you have been assigned, and if you're working with Brown&Co, by all means ask that question of the consultant that you're working with. I think the answer would be that it depends. It depends on what the relationship is and what the future might hold. Do try, but please don't expect any significant time input into writing an application as part of the process. But having said that, you know, we've got a dedicated team who've done lots of these before, a very good track record of success. And so it's certainly something we can help with. Okay, I think that's taken us pretty much to the end of questions, and we've been running for 40 minutes now. So if anybody has any last questions, please do ping them in now. Otherwise, I will end this webinar. Thank you all for listening. Please do come and talk to us about anything to do with grants, anything to do with environmental work, anything to do with planning your business going forward or diversifications. And we look forward to working with as many people as possible over the next months and beyond. So thank you all very much for attending. Thank you.